of us in our 50s, 60s, and 70s, people with all the money have created is destroying young people. Just a fact. And it's not just that they can't have, the place in Greenwich and the place in Jackson Hole. They can't have any place. They can't have anything. They can't own anything. And rather than even spend a day thinking through, how do we fix this? The answer is, well, we'll just import people who are grateful for what they're getting here, because the differential between what they got at home and got here is pretty big. Look, if you're from Oaxaca or Bangalore, not owning a home in your 30s is fine. You never expected to own a home anyway. So you're just happy to be here.
Guys, thank you so much for joining me. SotoCast, I'm here. This is a Tucker Carlson clip. This is from a larger podcast that he did a little bit earlier in the week. It's a little bit over an hour and a half. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly who he interviews towards the end of this one, but he's been doing this lately. He's almost been going back to his primetime show where he sits in front of a camera. He talks to you. He does a monologue. They're getting pretty good. He's getting very good at this stuff. Well, he's always been good at this. I'm saying this is starting to pick up a lot of traction. This style of Tucker Carlson, we kind of want this back. We kind of miss this, I think. This is the Tucker Carlson of old, the Tucker Carlson Fox S style, where he would sit in front of the camera, he would talk to you, and then, then he would bring someone and talk to them, and then they would go back and forth kind of style, rather than just a long form podcast, which we also like too. But it's nice that he's breaking it up like this. Give a listen to this. It is really good, really interesting, and then we'll dissect it as he goes along.
And you're grateful to people who brought you, and you'll vote for them. That is literally their thinking. And it's demonstrable. It's their thinking. But for people who were born here, what a betrayal. What a terrible betrayal. And worse than a betrayal. Here's just an overview of it.
Buying a home has never been harder. The average first-time buyer is now 40 years old, and it's more expensive to own. Nationally, the median price of a home is $415,000, up more than 50% since 2019. If you buy that average price home now, the payment is roughly $2,000 a month. When you pay it off in 30 years, it would have cost you about $657,000.
Now, I mean, looking at those numbers, let me just see, make sure the view good. So looking at those numbers, if you live in a, right outside New York City, like I do, those numbers aren't that bad, for your monthly payment. The problem is that's actually relatively close to what I'm paying right now, mortgage wise. Here's the problem. My property taxes are $18,000 a year. So, my monthly mortgage is that plus, another $1,500. And that's still really good. Really, really good. I got my house at a really good spot 10 years ago. There's nowhere the house that I would be buying right now at this time in this area would almost be double that number, right? So, if my mortgage and property taxes and everything like that comes 3.5 to 4, I'd be paying almost 7 at this point for the same house that I'm living in right now. I wouldn't be able to do it. There's not a chance I would be able to afford where I live right now, and I only purchased 10 years ago. So, I have a pretty good job, very stable job, and it's a relatively high-paying job. And that's not good. That's not good that somebody making as much as I'm making in the sector that I'm in wouldn't be able to afford where I currently am. That is a massive problem that needs to be addressed. I don't know how we're going to address that, but, Tucker's going to talk a little bit more about that now.
6 years ago, you'd have paid $1,500 a month and about $563,000 total. The dream of owning a home is causing some Americans to rethink important milestones. A new survey by Coldwell Banker finds 71% of aspiring homeowners are postponing at least one life decision, like getting married, having kids, or making career moves until they can afford to buy a home.
What else is a peer up, a look inside of a society other than that? That's what it's all about. Getting married, having children, having and then providing for those family and for that family and those children. If that's all we have, sorry guys, that's all we have. That's what we are kind of reduced to as beings, is the life that we live, the people that we share it with, and then providing for those people that we've chosen to bring into the world. That's really all it's about. That's what it's all about. I don't care what anyone else says. The fact that, some people choose not to have children, I don't understand that. I think that, it has to be completely against you as a biological entity to not want to procreate. That is everything that we are, every being in our, every fiber in our being is geared toward that, toward reproducing, procreating, bringing in the next. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be here. If that wasn't a pure and absolute truth, we would not be here. Think about going hundreds of thousands of years way back when the fact that, there was somebody, one of my ancestors didn't have electricity, didn't have running water, didn't have anything, but they had a desire to procreate and to carry on. Not just because here's the thing, right? Everyone can say, well, sex is ubiquitous. Everyone wants to have sex. Yes, but not only did they have sex, they had children and they cared for those children. And we are a product of that. From thousands upon thousands. I mean, you're talking about, before the light bulb, before, even before we invented fire, before we were able to control fire. I mean, just think about that. The people were living in caves. They were scrounging for food, disease, things that were trying to kill them. And they went through all of that. And you're here now. And you just decide, I'm good. You're sitting in an air conditioning room, browsing Netflix, and it ends with you. The lineage, the branch, all of that pain and suffering, and you just say you're good. How have we come to that as a society? How have people gotten to that point? And it's mainly only in the upper echelon, like high functioning, high upper class, wealthy societies that's an issue, and that's a big problem. Like the fact that you don't want your lineage to continue and it does nothing to you internally. I have to believe that when those people are on their way out, they have to know that they made a mistake. They have to feel that in the depths of their soul as they take the last breath. Damn, I effed up. I have to believe that.
So they can't afford houses. Probably the top issue for young men in their 20s and 30s are a lot of issues. By the way, at a time when they can't buy a home, the idea of sending money to a foreign country, particularly Israel, but all countries, any country, Sudan, France, pretty offensive because it is, after all, their government. They pay for it. Why wouldn't it offend them? But not being able to buy a home, if you ask any young person, or at least a dozen or two I've asked, number one, I grew up in a home, not an apartment, not Section 8, not a rental house, but like a house that I own. Not a huge house, but just like a house. I could go to Home Depot, buy garden hose, fix the gutter. Like, that's kind of the dream, actually.
That is exactly the dream. That really is. I thought about that since I was a little child, a small child. I thought about that. And I lived in an apartment. I mean, granted, my parents owned that apartment. So, they saved up, they bought it, and they had a mortgage. They didn't go to Home Depot and get hose and stuff like that because it was an apartment. It's a different style of living. But my idea was to do exactly this, what I have now, to buy the house, to have the dogs, to have the children running around, mow the lawn, go to Home Depot, to fix things myself, make my repairs. That was exactly my dream. And I don't see that possible for the next generations, unless, like, in my view, I kind of know how this is going. I'm going to hedge against this and do everything that I can to carve out a piece for myself, for my children. And if they choose to live on the property where we are, then we'll build a house. We'll do exactly. It's almost like we have to go back to the old school style, because what's being shaped for us going forward is not feasible. It's not going to work. There are a lot of things that could be done to mitigate, what's happening now. I just don't see it happening. There's a lot of good ideas being floated around. Let's see if he gets into some right here. Guys, if you're still here, please hit the subscribe button. That's all I ask. Just subscribe to the channel. Thank you.
Actually, for most men. And in that home, I have my wife, my children, and my dog. Like, these are not crazy aspirations. These are the most human aspirations men think about when they go to sleep at night. It's like my little house. There's nothing more male than that. It's my cave. And they're being denied that. So they're upset, and increasingly they feel nihilistic. True. And why wouldn't they? But the question that too few ask is, well, why can't they buy a home? Like, what is that? And you often hear dumb people say, we just don't have enough homes. Okay. Don't have enough homes, so we need to take like Yellowstone and build Section 8 or something. Morons. And of course, supply and demand is real. And so, there are fewer homes than we would like to have. And so the price rises. Okay, but that's not really the whole story. There are a bunch of factors. One, big companies buying homes and turning them into rentals. Why would you ever allow that? If you want a revolution, keep that up. Two is we just have more people. Density is a real thing. This is a great country because it's not an overpopulated country. It's not Bangladesh, not just because we're better than the Bangladeshis, but because there are fewer of us and a bigger piece of land. You don't want to live cheek to jowl. It makes people crazy. It makes rats crazy, and it makes people crazy. Nobody wants that. But we're getting it, and we're getting it through immigration. Illegal and legal. We're being flooded with people from outside the country. And everyone's like, oh, wow, that's a racial thing. Okay, maybe for some people, there are racial elements, for sure, certainly a lot of cultural elements that are important. But like at root, it's a very simple question. It's nothing to do with ethnicity or even culture. It's like, how many people do you want living near you? So many you can't afford a house? That's kind of an overlooked byproduct of stuffing the country full of people who are here because they're inexpensive to employ and grateful to be here. It's a massive byproduct. But there's another factor that's never mentioned, and that's debt. Young people are totally in hock. They are completely indebted. They have student loans. They were required to get a degree or told they were required to get a degree to get some job that no longer exists because it's been eliminated or H-1B'd or whatever. The jobs aren't there. Unemployment among recent college grads is out of control. Are they becoming more moderate? once they leave college, like hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt? They followed every instruction they were given dutifully because young people are actually pretty dutiful. And in this country, young people, some of them are really smart, for real. Talk to them. There are tons of losers, of course, there always are, but the smart ones are really smart and very aware of what's going on. And they know that they've been completely betrayed. They did what they were told to do, and they're shafted. They're literally shafted because they don't have enough income. In some cases, any. So what are they doing? They're going into debt. They have student loans. They have credit card debt. And of course, now there are all these other ways to borrow money that are disguised. Buy now, pay later. What's that? You're going into debt, of course. And what's so interesting about this, and this is a problem primarily on the right, though not exclusively, is that no one has sympathy for them at all. Conservatives, you hate to say this out loud, but it's true. Conservatives have been trained to blame the borrower, not the lender. It's like a feature of the mindset.
This is an excellent point that he's about to bring up. And it is a product of, and again, someone that was, I'm super into Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, all these old economist guys that, that would kind of drill this into your head, free market capitalism, the free enterprise, which I still hold true today is the best system, bar none. Unfortunately, that's not what we have right now. There is a corporate capture of the system, in my opinion. The system has been captured by corporate interests that are using the government as to cut out niches for themselves, and they are not abiding by the free market enterprise system. They whether it's through law or through tax incentives and cut on stuff like that. Minimum wage is actually the largest companies in the United States want a higher minimum wage. That is a fact. Why? Why do they want a higher minimum wage? Because it doesn't allow other competition to enter into the marketplace. It makes it illegal for them to be able to amass, a workforce in the beginning as a startup, because it's just impossible for you to pay labor at an exorbitant cost that let's say, Walmart wants $15 minimum wage, because then a mom and pop can't open up and say, listen, I'm here, I'll give you $10 an hour. That's illegal for them. So capitalism does not exist in the form that a lot of people think that the system is what we have now. It's just not a thing at this point.
Well, you took the loan, you got to pay it back. It's your moral duty to pay it back. Pay back what you owe. Don't be a deadbeat. Okay, fine, get it, like it. But is it really that simple? No, it's not. Because the relationship between borrower and lender is inherently symbiotic. One cannot exist without the other. What other relationship is like that? What other fraught, sad, diseased relationship is like that? Well, addict and pusher. Of course. You can't be a drug addict unless someone sells you drugs. And yet, we understand the complexity of that relationship, and we punish both. In fact, we punish the drug dealer more harshly than we punish the drug addict, because we understand that the drug dealer is making all this suffering possible. And we feel sorry for the addict. Well, he's an addict. We can punish him, and by the way, throwing him in jail might be the only way to sober him up. It might save his life. And we should. For his own sake, and for ours. Stop breaking into my car. Got it. But the drug dealer, well, that we reserve our rage for him, because he's the one doing it. He's taking advantage of the weak. And that's all true. And that's appropriate to feel that way. It's exactly right. But we don't feel that way about credit card companies or student loan vendors or the guys who are literally offering buy now, pay later for DoorDash. Some unemployed or underemployed college grad went to some crappy college, got a worthless degree because he believed in it. Now he can't get a job at JP Morgan. He's never going to get one. And we are telling him it's totally cool to buy sushi on credit. What?
It's such a multi-layered problem. You can't ignore the housing crisis and ignore the college crisis. they're symbiotic. They are one. The fact that we tell everybody to get a college degree, the fact that the majority of our country now sends its young youth to college. What does that do to an asset? It suffers in inflation. It's worth less now than it was before because it's ubiquitous. Everybody has it. Everybody has it. It's garbage. And we, as, I guess middle age, we have to be able to look our children in the eye and say, maybe that's not a good idea. I understand that it's hard. I was able to do that. It was not easy to look at your kids and say, I don't know if college is the right thing. I'm not sure what the right thing really is, but it may not be college. You may not be ready for it right now. If you were going to go for going to go into STEM or going to go, into a field that actually requires actual study, then I would do whatever I could to get you through to further your, into a good university. But if you're going to go for something that doesn't require that, then no, we're not doing that. Why? Because nobody can afford that, right? We can't afford that. So what happens? They go in there to take out a loan and they sit down with an 18-year-old and they say, hey, I'm going to throw $100,000 on debt, but don't worry about it. You'll take care of it later. What do they say? Sure. That sounds great. I don't have to worry about this till later so I can party for the next 4 years and have the time of my life. And then what? Leave there with zero experience, go into a field that you had that your college experience had nothing to do with. You're just saddled with the debt and you have a piece of paper that says, congrats. You took on a whole bunch of loans. You took on a whole bunch of debt. You have zero experience, but you got this piece of paper that's worth absolute dog shit.
He shouldn't buy sushi on credit, obviously. That's dumb, but he's a kid. Who's worse? The guy who borrows the money or the guy who loans the money at some ridiculous rate? Payday loans in this country, there are payday loans that have a 600% annual interest rate. And we kind of ignore it because we're like, who would take a payday loan? That's like a ghetto thing. Okay, fine. It's a ghetto thing. But who would do that to the ghetto, actually? Who would do something like that?
It's not even a ghetto thing. It's not even a ghetto thing. I wish it was. I know people with careers, with long-term jobs, that take those on a regular basis. Because something has happened. Something has happened. And it's been creeping up little by little. And now it's here. And your what used to be upper middle class is now lower middle class. And forget about, I mean, listen, anyone in the middle class spectrum from upper to lower is completely shut out of any market where labor is required. You try to have somebody come to your house and fix anything. I fix everything. The only thing I had fixed by somebody, and I was really pissed that I did it because afterwards I saw them do it and I was like, shit, I definitely could have done that, was to fix my well. The pump in my well went and I called somebody to fix it. And after they did, I said, damn, I should have been able to do that. And what did it cost? And this was a couple years ago. It cost $3,500. $3,500 to get someone to replace the pump that goes into my well, to bring water into my house. You need water. You need water more than you need electricity. I mean, that is just one of those things. So we didn't have any water. I didn't know how to do it. I had to bite the bullet. But as a, I would say middle class, maybe even lower middle class when it comes to the New York standards, you can't afford to have anything fixed by a third party. You just can't. Priced out of the market.
If somebody said to you, you can make a pretty good living exploiting and degrading people, destroying their lives, would you do it? Hope not. But if you did do it, the rest of us would have a moral obligation to say, you are disgusting. That's disgusting what you're doing. And we don't. And we especially don't on the right. Because it's immoral to criticize banks or something because you don't believe in free markets? Well, yeah, I wish we had them. Of course I believe in free markets. Where is the free market in the United States? When you find it, you've got my cell. But what we have to be against, and this is more important than whatever you believe about the effectiveness of relative economic systems, we have to be against exploiting and crushing people. And if we're not, then what are we doing? And it's not even a matter of banning it. It's a matter of saying it's disgusting. 30% interest credit card? And that's totally fine? I must have done 15 segments at Fox News about how Joe Biden's real sin was making credit card debt non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. Oh, who cares? Well, you're against capitalism? If you want to make people against capitalism, let that shit continue. And they will absolutely vote for Mamdani. And they have, by the way, they have. So if you want to understand why young people are getting radical, one of the main reasons is they are being exploited by the most unscrupulous, richest people in our society and then being blamed for it. And no one says a word about the rich, unscrupulous people who are doing this because everyone's taking money from them. And you saw this in the last administration, the liberal administration. So the idea was, and it's true, young people are being destroyed by student loans. Okay, that's true. Who's benefiting from that? Well, the colleges, of course, are benefiting because it's allowing them to hire more administrators than they have professors. It's allowing them to live in this kind of fantasy world where they build this incredibly beautiful little biosphere in the middle of some economically depressed hellscape in a rural area. That's true of like every New England college.
Yep.
Bates College in Lewiston. Ever been to Lewiston? Bates is beautiful. Why? Because they're participating in the scam, of course. Backstopped by the federal government, by student loans. So they're the beneficiary. They're the loan shark here, actually. And so are the companies that are getting rich from this. But what was the Biden plan? The Biden plan was to stick taxpayers with the bill for bailing out students. So they identified the problem correctly, which is kids are getting completely screwed. That's terrible. And it's preventing them from having productive lives, getting married, buying houses. It's hurting them. So who gets to fix it? You do. You've got nothing to do with it. You're probably paying your own kids' tuition, but you get to bail them out. And guess who's not blamed or punished? The beneficiaries, the lenders. Because you can't criticize the banks, can't criticize the universities. Oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Because it's not exclusively their fault. It's primarily their fault. And they've dodged all responsibility, just like everyone who's made life-destroying decisions in this country over the past 20 years.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, he hits it. He hits it spot on. Spot on. The only thing I would add, the only thing I would add is that we as parents also have to take some of the blame in pushing this on our children, in saying that they need to get this degree from this institution, that just do whatever you want. Just go there and just feel it out. Take liberal arts and feel it out and you know, work your way through it, and you'll find something that you like, and then do that. No, I say no, and I've said no. That's not a good. What kind of advice is that? What kind of advice is that? Would you give? I mean, that's if somebody's coming, you know, if you do investments and somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I want to invest in X. Well, you know what? Just browse around and pick it and just, you know, just see what you like. No, there are certain things that are a good investment. There are certain things that make sense. They make financial sense. And that's how the game needs to be played. The game is not feelings. The game is not passions. The game is what makes financial sense. And if it doesn't make financial sense, then you should consider not doing it. And if you are going to do it, you need to understand the consequences that may result, as you know, because of you doing this. That's what we need to do. Guidance counselors should be saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't go to college. Maybe you should take HVC. Maybe you should do welding. Maybe you should go. Maybe you should be a mechanic. And then for girls, push them more towards maybe you should be a nurse or whatever. Girls, guys, whoever. But push them towards something that makes financial sense. If you're a guidance counselor and somebody comes to you saying, I'm going to get a degree in musical theater. That's what I went for, guys. That's what I went for. I went to a school for musical theater. I can say, hands down. I mean, luckily, the job that I have requires a certain amount of credits. I was able to get those credits. They didn't care what credits I got. I got the credits. I was able to get my job later down the road after college. But would that degree in musical theater, would that have gotten me the part in the Broadway show? Would that have gotten me the lead in an opera that I was auditioning for? No. It wouldn't have done anything. It exposed me to people and things and ideas, and that was cool. I easily could do that, and actually I did more of it when I left and I went into that world. and actually did shows and stuff like that, that's where you learn that stuff. You learn art by painting and drawing. Yes, you can learn art theory and stuff like that, but all this stuff is online now. All of it's online. There is zero need to go to a university to get art theory or music history. So try to sit down with your kids and unfortunately think this thing through. This is a tough segment. I understand that. But there's a lot of moving parts here. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. This was a long one. 6283 Talk on the X if you want to follow me on X. And I'm John Soto. This is SotoCast. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care. Thank you.